Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kaustubha. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Super Soul Farm, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York City, Kaustubha Das. Welcome to the show, and welcome to Tuesday. We missed Makeover Monday yesterday because I took the day off for my travels from Colombia. So we are on Makeover Tuesday. What are you going to do with your... It doesn't roll out as well, Makeover Tuesday. Trivia Tuesday worked, but...
But we never got the trivia together.
We never got that together, Trivia Tuesday. Well, we're back. I went from eating tropical fruit and swimming in creeks to plowing my driveway. And that's how we roll up here. You know, I guess it's that pain of the weather. I feel like that keeps you on your edge of bhakti. It's like, yeah, the material world, it's not too soft. You got to be on your, right? It's those cold winter mornings that make you think of there's got to be more to life than this.
Got to get out of this place.
Down in Colombia, it's like life is good, everyone's nice, food is literally growing. You could stick a broom in the ground and the thing will grow. Everything is fertile. And
I think you never made it to that farm because I never saw any photos or anything from there. Did you go?
I didn't. You know what? I was really, really I was doing my duty, man. I was writing my book, and I was staying in a separate house, and then I was going back and forth to the ashram all day long. I barely did anything except for our excursion days, which is when I.
But Shama Sundari could have taken everyone over there or something like that.
She didn't do it.
No, well, you had to push it. You had to tell her. Anyway, next time.
It
was such a beautiful
great place. It is. It's simple and cool.
No, the farm though. You didn't go there.
Oh, that farm? No,
yeah.
It is. That probably is. Yes, I did not go. I've been to other beautiful farms, but not that beautiful Colombian farm.
Right.
Yeah. So, what did I miss?
Just a lot of snow, but you made it for it, I guess, just in time.
I made it just in time for the snow.
You missed some really cold weather. It was very, very cold before the snow. It's crazy cold.
Yeah, that was. All right, so we have stumbled upon a very sweet place in the Srimad-Bhagavatam, and it's Canto 2, Chapter 3.
No, Canto 3, Chapter 2.
Oops, I'm backwards again. Canto 3, Chapter 2. All right, let me pull this. There I am. Okay.
I'm starting with text 25 today.
Yeah, But first,
our
sacred mantras. Rayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam mudirayet. Before reciting the Srimad-Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances to the personality of Godhead Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayeshva bhadreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotees, All that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed. And loving service to the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmandatam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I offer my obeisances to my spiritual masters who have opened my eyes, which were blinded by the darkness of ignorance, with the ointment of knowledge. All right.
All right.
Third canto. Sorry about that. Chapter 2.
Oh, yeah. Maybe we can just say quick. It's been a while since we've been back, right? We had a few days off. And
few days off, travel days, questions and answers day.
Q&A.
Throws me off.
So, the very intimate associate of Krishna, Uddhava, has been questioned by Vidura, the great sage. And he said, tell me about Krishna. And so now he's doing it. And he's about to go into these verses that are... first he spoke about Krishna's beauty, and then he spoke about his character, right? How beautiful he is on one hand. Just like, when you see him, it's just like incredibly stunning, just like how beautiful he is, right? And then he started speaking about his character, particularly how kind and merciful, and how he's so lovingly inclined, particularly to those that love him. And now he's going to begin to speak about Krishna's life, and he's going to kind of go sequentially. It's kind of like an overture of what we'll get in the 10th canto. He's just going to run through the pastimes, just one verse for them. Just
sort of a highlight reel.
A little highlight reel, yeah.
A little highlight reel of the 10th canto here, which is sort of cool. It's like watching movie trailers. Ever just stay home and watch trailers of movies, but not the movies themselves?
Don't do
Which
that.
is the equivalent of reading Cliff Notes, if you don't know what those are. Not reading the book, but getting a rough...
Just so if you're at a mocktail party, you can kind of discuss those films.
There's an app like that. Do you know that? Blinkist?
No,
you have
I didn't know that. Nope.
It gives you a summary of every book that's out there, like a new book, but in audio for people like me.
Oh, in audio, okay.
Who don't have time to read books and don't even have time to listen to the entire book.
You go to Blinkist.
Blinkist, something like that. Okay. I'm not getting a percentage.
I thought you were going to share a link, URL.
Coupon code.
So, but in hearing this, like say you're new to this podcast, or you just tuned in today, I heard about this, there's some yoga podcasts, and they get into philosophy or something like that. What we're going to get into now is the esoteric side, right? It's, if you're expecting whatever, philosophy or, pranayama instruction or, discussion of asana or something, this is different than that. This is the esoteric side of Bhakti Yoga, which is basically, the idea is that when you follow the yoga path all the way, when you keep going, right? When you get your body under control and your senses under control and your breath under control, and you begin to settle your mind, ultimately what those yogis were doing was they're settling their mind for the purpose of focusing it on the divine, on God.
Right.
And
not
that
just
God,
to black out their mind.
Yeah, right. That is to settle the mind so that you could focus it, right? To deeply absorb it. And the primary focus was to focus it on God. And God was understood and presented in three different features: the all-pervasive energy of God, the localized form of God within the heart of every living being. And these topics are all discussed at great length in various yogic texts. And the third being the personal form of God, God as a person. And it said that it's that form from which all energy manifests. And the Bhagavatam is kind of meant to be the pinnacle of all the yoga literature. The same author who gave us the Vedas and the Upanishads and the Mahabharata and the Puranas, he concludes with this work where he really, once and for all, really fully defines that it's this personal form that if you get to know and you get to love, that the complete yogic experience takes place. And he calls that Atma Supersidity, the complete satisfaction of the self. So when you hear this, these sound almost like kitschy, right?
Right.
Yeah,
Kitschy.
and I think maybe I'm not sure if that word is like non-American people use that word, or
Kitsch.
Europeans,
Can
people
we pull out a definition of Merriam-Webster of that? Mary. And while she's looking for that, we forgot to,
What did we
on the
forget?
side we mentioned it, but we were officially supposed to say today's your birthday day. It is your birthday.
It's
Happy
not
birthday.
my birthday. Thank you.
Meaning it's not your birthday, but today we were going to celebrate. It was going to be birthday
Okay.
Tuesday. Happy birthday. He's
Thank you.
55.
Yeah, 55.
We're 55. We're both 55.
Yeah, caught up.
Shocking to even say. Because every time I think of a 55-year-old, I'm thinking, oh, this guy's so old. I was like, that's me.
You wear it well, Rugger. You wear it well.
Thank you. Thank you very much, there. Because I'm immature.
That helps. Okay. Do you got that definition, Mary?
Yeah, kitschy, considered to be in poor taste because of excessive garishness or sentimentality, but sometimes appreciated in an ironic or knowing way.
That's it, I think, right?
Kitschy.
Something like, for instance, you know what I thought was kitschy?
What?
I just saw it and I thought it was really cool, but like kitschy like that, right? Was that new record you guys released? I guess you re-released
It's
a record.
kitschy. Yeah, we reissued. It's interesting. We have this record called "When 20 Summers Pass,"
Shelter.
meaning sometimes deep in the future, when 20 summers pass, where are you going to be at in 20 years from now? It's a good question.
Think like that, yeah. Okay.
Where are you going to be?
You're going to be 75.
Well, be dead. Are you kidding? 20. So it's like a question you just throw out there. Where's your head going to be at? And you know what's weird? That crazy long distance, bomb to the end zone. That's now. That it's 20 years later when that record came out. So we reissued the record.
Oh, no. Oh, that was the idea.
Yeah, and we reissued the record, and it's very kitschy. It's a gatefold record, and you open up, it's got an altar that pops up.
Right.
It's kitschy. Come on.
It's totally kitschy. Yeah,
it's kitschy.
In other words, that kind of thing, fold-out book, is really something meant for children, right? It's designed
pop-up.
A pop-up thing. Yeah, you unfold the thing and it pops. But it's really cool, right? There's something in that art that's that's really cool.
And we did a shelter bead bag, which is which
that
we
came
had
with the record too.
Yeah, we had one actually. That was one of the coolest things Shelter ever made. We made a bead bag that we printed in Vrndavan, and Vrndavan they use this that red Indian ink that bleeds on all your clothes if you wash it. So we made a Shelter bead bag with that Indian ink at the classic Loy Bazaar Ganga Prasad.
Very cool.
They made them for us, and so we made a picture disc of this CD and a bead bag and a.
Remember that time who was it that left that bead bag on the train?
Vincent.
In Varkala? Vincent, yeah, Vincent.
Vincent from Germany. He's a great soul. He listens to the show a lot.
He's great. Love him.
No, he didn't leave his bead bag. He left his entire bag.
I think, but part of it was I think he left his the story. I won't tell the whole story, but we jumped off a train, and you had to jump off the train quick because it starts going. This is in India.
It's not like Amtrak where the train stops, wait till everybody get off. It's sort of like you gotta get off quick, and everyone's just like taking their time.
Yeah.
And Radhakund is yelling at us this big.
And he had warned everyone somehow. He'd
like, you gotta get off the train. He's like, why aren't they getting off the train? Why aren't they getting off? Get off the train! And all of a sudden, everyone's got like their backpacks on. The train starts moving, and our people are starting to jump off the train, off of a moving train. And Vincent, who's very sick that day, I'll give him the credit for that.
I think that was the reason, right?
He was very, very sick. And as the train's going, he goes, oh, I left my bag on the train. And so Radhakund, our gigantic brahmachari, older gentleman, he dives on a moving train. He goes, where's your bag? Where's your bag? And Vincent just goes, I think it's underneath my seat. And at that time, you just see the train take off with Radhakund on the train. And you just hear him go, ah!
He's going to the next
He's going
stop,
to the
which
next.
is a couple
And the
hours,
next stop was hours away.
But I remember him saying, like, when we're sitting there on the platform and the train's like going away, it's like, was there anything like valuable, and he's like going down, well, there's that Shelter bead bag that I got, I had to get that in some like eBay auction or something like that.
It's
and
a collector's item.
We're like, how much did you pay for that? And he's like, oh, you don't want to know. But now they're available.
We got to go to Loy Bazaar and make bootlegs again.
Yeah.
I almost
Okay.
feel like you got to tell people what Loy Bazaar is. Loy Bazaar is this great market in Vrndavan, that
No, street market.
street market. And it's run by the mafia, and I don't mean the Vrndavan mafia. I mean the monkeys. They run the whole place.
Vrindavan
Monkeys are-
Mafia is
the
also active.
They are a type of mafia. They're
Yeah.
like a
But the monkeys are no. So
Monkey
in any
mafia.
case, that's kitsch, right? It's something that's like a
nice kitsch.
like a lot of Indian stuff, like like lots of sequins and things. It's kind of kitschy, right?
All of India is kitsch. If you think about it. It's the whole thing. Is Bollywood is kitsch.
Yeah. So when you hear these pastimes of Krishna, right, they sound kitschy. At
You
first,
got to follow
they're cute.
Ricky.Pons on Instagram right now. Ricky.Pons. It's
Okay.
this guy who's like my age, a little out of shape. He's got 4 kids, and he does Bollywood dancing every day. He posts himself Bollywood, and it's so kitsch, and it's great. Everybody right now, give him 100 more subscribers. Ricky.Ponds. You'll like it.
People want to know where they can buy the record.
I don't know. I don't even know.
Parmananda helped them with that.
Parmananda will help him. It's Parmananda's birthday today.
Get out.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's
It's a real
birthday popcorn. Everything's going off. Happy birthday, Parmananda.
Oh, happy birthday, Parmananda G. So back to Krishna's pastime. So this is the point that I want to make. Is when you hear these, they sound like kid stories. They sound kitschy. The beautiful little blue boy running around the forest. He's got the cows. He's getting in fights with monsters of various sorts and so on. If you just see it that way, and if someone tells it to you and presents it that way, the whole thing seems kind of kitschy. But rest assured, what I want to share with you is that brilliant. That if you actually really go into the literature, what to speak of if you really go into the commentaries that are coming from these like powerful philosophers, like really stellar philosophers, this Krishna's Leela, Krishna's pastimes, the deeper you go in, the more that you discover that it's a very profound, very sublime philosophy, right? Like sublime is like the opposite of kitsch, right? It's like something that's very deeply meaningful and not silly at all, but like really very.
Sure.
Look, can we get a sublime definition there, Mara?
Yep.
But really, really meaningful.
It's of such excellence or beauty as to inspire great admiration or awe.
Perfect, right? Yeah. So that's what if you take the time and really try to understand it as it's truly presented, we'll find that this theology and philosophy is really sublime. So what happens here is there's a series of verses. We'll read maybe 5 or 6 of them or something like that today and touch on them a little bit. Sound good?
Yeah, it's actually Parmananda's birthday tomorrow. Is it Rachel's birthday today?
Yeah, today's Rachel's birthday.
Happy birthday, Rachel. This is getting crazy.
All right. You ready?
Yeah.
You want to start with 24? Maybe go back and forth?
Sure. 24. I consider the demons who are inimical towards the Lord to be more than the devotees, because while fighting with the Lord, absorbed in thoughts of the enmity, they are able to enmity is like hatred, right?
Yeah.
They are able to see the Lord carried on the shoulder of Garuda, the son of Kashyapa, Tarksha, and carrying the wheel weapon in his hand.
Yeah. The personality of God, Lord Sri Krishna, being prayed to by Brahma to bring welfare to the earth, was begotten by Vasudeva in the womb of his wife Devaki in the prison of the king of Bhoja.
Thereafter, his father, being afraid of Kamsa, brought him to the cow pastures of Maharaj Nanda, and there he lived for 11 years like a covered flame with his elder brother Baladev. Great little trivia. 11 years he lived with Nanda and Yashoda.
Mm-hmm. In his childhood, the Almighty Lord was surrounded by cowherd boys and calves, and thus he traveled on the shore of the Yamuna River, through gardens densely covered with trees and filled with vibrations of chirping birds.
God was a cowherd boy. You can't make that up, right? In his childhood, I'm sorry. When the Lord displayed his activities just suitable for childhood, he was visible only to the residents of Vrndavan. Sometimes he would cry and sometimes laugh just like a child, and while doing so, he would appear like a lion cub.
While herding the very beautiful bulls, the Lord, who was the reservoir of all opulence and fortune, used to blow his flute, and thus he enlivened his faithful followers, the cowherd boys. Okay, so let's hold it there. All right.
Okay.
This needs some explanation. Explain what just went on, Raghu. What's going on here?
Well, we are getting a little glimpse into the life of God who happens to take care of cows. That's what God does. People might ask that question, what do you do in heaven? Well, here you go. You get a cowherd stick and you start moving cows around.
Really?
Yeah, that's it. That's
But
the
yeah,
highest.
but all of that, right? Like in other words, when you read these, it's actually the descriptions just get more and more and more and more beautiful, right? There was a little taste of that where it said, that it described how he's on the bank of the Yamuna, a beautiful river, and he's going through densely gardens that are densely covered with trees and filled with vibrations of chirping birds. It's this idyllic setting. But this is the key. Here's a takeaway, right? That when we're talking about Krishna's Leela, Krishna's pastimes, why is this kitschy thing happening? Or why is this, almost absurd thing happening? The answer will always be, and it will always be, that it's happening for the sake of the exchange of love. That right? It's like just like a playwright, a screenwriter will create circumstances, and usually those circumstances, they become exaggerated in some way, right? Like the trouble that the hero's going through or whatever is intensified.
The dread and the fear, and it builds you.
Yeah.
It builds you. It builds the emotion.
It builds the emotion. And so what's happening in Vrndavan is the idea here in this theology is that you can know God as an energy. You can have a realization that there is a transcendental energy that I'm composed of that same energy, right? That's eternal. That is not subject to the, winter one day and summer the next day of this world. That's not where the ups and downs and the constant shifts of this world, the element of time, the law of karma, that's beyond all of that. And I'm part of that. I am that in some sense, right? That's one level of understanding God. And there's another level of understanding God, that God is within the heart of every living being, ready to communicate and share and care for and so on. But but when you can know God in this most intimate way, the idea is, again, all the yoga is leading to this, that it plays out just like a playwright will create circumstances to intensify the emotions. So Krishna's Leela, everything's being intensified. The beauty is super high, but then the danger comes in. And then, just all the different emotions can play out here, but in a spiritual realm rather than in a material realm. All the same emotions that we see here play out there. But
they bring us to not loving the heroine or loving the hero, or not. It brings us to loving Krishna.
Yeah, and that's like reconnecting to the root of all existence.
And that's why we call it a daily yoga podcast.
Okay.
People would listen for 5 days and be like, wait a second, I haven't heard anything about yoga yet. When are they going to talk about yoga?
This is yoga. This is where it goes.
This is yoga. The Hare Krishna used to give out cards on the street. Come to the temple.
Yoga class.
No. Well, they used to give out cards to invite you to the Sunday feast and Bhagavad Gita lecture in New York. And they used to give them to me and said, oh, come for Bhakti-yoga class and vegetarian feast and kirtan. I was like, oh, pretty interesting. I go for a Bhakti-yoga class. I'm a little out of shape. And so I remember calling the temple in Brooklyn saying, oh, yeah, I want to go to that Bhakti-yoga class. What should I wear? Like a sweatpants? And that, because I never did yoga.
Or whatever.
Oh yeah, you can wear sweatpants if you want. I was like, or is it better just to wear shorts? And are those short shorts really they're like, well, you wear whatever you want, man. So I would go to the temple, and then, the temple's sort of big, and I'm walking around, and after the Sunday feast, I'd be like, man, I think I missed that yoga class again. Where do they do the yoga class? This is what we've done here. Like, I've signed up for this daily yoga podcast, but maybe I missed it. Maybe I got to go to the back episode, or they forgot to talk about the yoga again.
Right.
Daily yoga. This is the yoga. It's clearing the mind to reconnect. That is the yoga, people.
Okay. So the first verse that we read, it described that Uddhava was saying, you know what? The demons, right? And these demons, they play out in the pastimes. They play out in the Leela. He says, actually, like, I kind of really got to tip my hat to them, because you know what? Because he had just described that even the members of the Yadu dynasty didn't really understand who Krishna was. But he's saying these demons, even though they didn't like Krishna, even though they hated him, they're totally envious of him, but it led to them having the vision of Krishna coming down, or maybe Vishnu, I suppose, coming down on the on Garuda, on the bird, right? And just
I was trying to
someone's so
understand what
fortunate
that
to
verse-
have that vision.
That's an interesting verse. Well, one thing is, when you hate somebody, you can't stop thinking of that person.
And therefore, when you hate Krishna, you've become a great yogi.
You become a great. It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. All these
In
demons,
some
they
sense.
sounds like Krishna is just this cruel, sadistic. He's killing everybody. No. This is like the highest liberation. This is like it's the most fortunate birth to be the great demon that kills Krishna, because they're always in
He tries
great
to kill him, yeah.
meditation on Krishna, and they have this incredible backstory. Some of them are actually great souls who just did something weird, and they have to take birth, and that as a
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a commentary we can read. It's going to talk about that actually too. Yeah. And so, so another thing, it mentioned that he's born in a prison, and he's born to his parents who are named Vasudev and Devaki. But they sneak him out of that prison because their brother and brother-in-law, Kamsa, who's the king, is trying to kill Krishna. He's terrified of him because there's this omen that Krishna would kill him. So they slip him out of the prison, and he's raised, across the river in the, Mathura is kind of like the city where he's born, right?
Yeah.
And
Krishna is actually born in Mathura, for those who
Mathura.
want some trivia. That's where he's from.
And then he snuck out across the river to Vrndavan, and he's left with Nanda and Yashoda, who Nanda is kind of like the head of the cowherd community over there, and Yashoda is his wife, and so they grow up thinking that Krishna is their own child, and Krishna grows up, thinking that these are my parents. Meanwhile,
How did they do that, you might ask? Because the mother was asleep. The
Yeah.
parents were asleep when they had a baby girl.
It'll
And
drop
then
off
while
of
they
you.
were sleeping, he switched the baby, and she was just like, in the course of birth, she just maybe forgot. That's sort of like a little
It
bit of a
describes
leap.
the
It's
labor.
a little bit of a leap.
No, it just
You
makes
had a
up the
girl,
story.
you went to bed, you woke up, and you changed genders. The child changed genders.
So in any case,
Is that described?
yeah, it said that like the exhaustion of childbirth and everything like that.
Can make you forget.
Or even like maybe she just kind of collapsed right immediately
Just
after
like
the birth.
woke
or
up.
something like that.
Oh, I guess I had a boy. I thought it was a girl.
Yeah. And so Krishna's born there, and so it's mentioning these characters. But this is the point, is that Yashoda's love for Krishna, Nanda's love, the love of that the parents have from Krishna. This is what the 10th canto is going to start to get into. What's most special is the intensity of love that can be shared. All we're doing in this world, you see, again, what this theology is saying is that the emotions that are playing out in this world are just a warped reflection of the emotions that play out in the spiritual realm. And we're here to kind of discover that and try to learn that and try to get past all our warped kind of emotions and get onto the spiritual level. And so within Krishna's Leela, we're seeing those emotions on the spiritual level just playing out. And they're playing out in different varieties. They're playing out with the intimacy of a mother's love for a child or a father's love for a child. They're playing out in the intimacy of friendship. Krishna running around with his friends, the cowherd boys. And they're also playing out in a romantic way with Krishna and the girls of Vrindavan. And so the nuances of these relationships, the Bhagavatam itself, and then the commentators on the Bhagavatam, these great saints and yogis, would write in really deeply meaningful texts about digging deeper and deeper into the sublime nature of these pastimes and what's going on. And coincidentally, our friend Tara Das,
Taradas, he books. A lot of you guys know him if you've traveled to India with me, because he does all the registration. He sort of assists me with our trainings and stuff like that.
yeah, and Tara's my old buddy going back 30 years.
plus years.
Yeah. So he just yesterday he sent me this little excerpt from a book called the Sri Vrndavan Mahima, which is written by Shivaram Swami, and that's a book where he I believe that book he's drawing from the great commentators, from the different Goswamis works and so on, which talk about Krishna's pastimes, and he'll kind of sew them together to tell the stories, right? Because this one saint may have in his meditation seen this pastime, and another one saw it in another way, and he kind of brings those details together. And maybe we could read that story. It's a little
It's a
excerpt.
cute story.
It's try to, when you hear this, try to get beyond the kitsch, right? And see it as you have to try to see it in your mind. The beauty of Yashoda. Here's a woman whose love for God is so deep, and her desire to serve God with the love of a mother is so deep, that she's been provided the perfect form in which to do that, which is just like this form of the most beautiful mother, beautiful woman, and Krishna, she forgets that Krishna is God, because that would interfere with her, the intimacy of her love.
Intimacy, yeah.
Right. And he's forgetting that he's God too, right? Because he has to feel what a child feels when a mother loves them.
Do we have a Yashoda and Vasudeva, Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj's previous birth identity? Does anybody know that? Do you know that? Put that up on the board.
Yeah, someone.
It was different than
a lot of trivia.
Devaki was she was the great yogini.
Yeah, there are verses that describe, the piety that was accumulated for so many lifetimes that they could play this role.
Yeah.
So should you read it? Should I read it? Want to try?
Should we dramatize it? Like, I'll be Yashoda?
Well, you see, that's because because elderly Gopi is your Svarupa in the spiritual realm. Like, you're attracted to that. But it might be hard to do. Because
you have stolen it, she declared.
Because it's not
Mara's
written.
Mara's the narrator.
It's not written like a play script, so it might get messy if we try to do that. You want?
Right.
Let me read it, because I've read it a couple times. Yeah. So here's the story. Mother Yashoda once accused Krishna of stealing butter. So now Krishna's like very young at this age, right? He's, I don't know, maybe like 3 or something, or maybe a little bit older, maybe 4 or 5 or something like that. So Mother Yashoda once accused Krishna of stealing butter. You have stolen it, she declared. But Krishna professed his innocence. It couldn't have been me. You sent me to Madhuvan to herd the cows. That's another forest in Vrindavan. I left early this morning and have just now returned in the setting sun. The cows and the cowherd boys are my witnesses. I've been away in Madhuvan all day. How can you accuse me like this? And Krishna shed crocodile tears as he sobbed. Right? So now the fact was, Krishna was stealing that butter, right? He's tricky. He may have had everyone thinking he was out there in Madhuvan with the cows, but meanwhile he was like raiding people's storehouses. And so he shed some crocodile tears and he sobbed me. He says, I returned tired and hungry, and you call me a thief. How can you be so cruel? Am I no longer your son? If not, I will not live here any longer. Right? So Krishna, he's playing this role, You've hurt me so much by that accusation that I would be a thief. How could you even think such a thing? If I'm not going to be trusted, I can't even live here anymore. Now, when he says that, Mother Yashoda, her heart is so soft in her love for her son. So she sees him crying, and she's like, oh no, what have I said? So Yashoda Devi's heart softened. Perhaps I'm mistaken, she thought. Perhaps the neighbor saw someone else. Let's see. Yashoda put her face in her palms and sobbed. Oh, my son, I was wrong. I'm sorry. The neighbors complained. They swore upon their cows that you spent all day terrorizing their homes and breaking yoga pots, eating the contents and sharing it with the monkeys. They were adamant. Now seeing the love of his mother, right? She was so moved and touched by his crying, and now she's crying, and her hands are in her palms, and she's crying. Now Krishna's saying, no, what did I do? I was telling a fib, and now my mother is like crying like this. So now Krishna's heart softened. He placed his one hand on her arm and pleaded, Mother, don't cry. I confess, I stole the butter. Real tears now filled his bumblebee eyes as he repeated, please don't cry, please don't cry. Now Yashoda's catching on, right? Okay, he's up to his tricks, right? But she's going to continue to play the part. Yashoda looked at her son through her fingers and sobbed even louder. Forgive me, O innocent one, I wrongly accused you. It is as you say, you were in Madhuvan, you couldn't have done it. Krishna squeezed his mother's arm, crying, you are not to blame. I did do it, I did. She replied, no, you didn't. Krishna insisted, yes, I did. No, you didn't. Yashoda replied, barely able to contain her laughter. Right? So she's like, she's got him. Now he was tricking her, right? Like he's raiding storehouses of butter and causing all kind of trouble in the neighborhood. And he lied and he tricked her. And then she cried. And then she caught on that he actually thinks now that I think he's innocent. And I'm just going to keep playing it like and now he's crying, right? And she's just enjoying seeing the cuteness and the love that he has for her. So she's trying to still play the role, and she almost can't contain her laughter. And so she says, no, you didn't, Yashoda replied, barely able to contain her laughter. Yes, I did, declared Krishna. But now he detected something funny in his mother's voice. Repeatedly tugging at her hands, he finally uncovered her radiant, smiling face. She had tricked him. Mother Yashoda looked at Krishna with wide open eyes and said, no, you didn't. And then, laughing, threw her arms around her son, covering his now smiling, tear-stained face with kisses. Krishna
This is my Lord. This is my Lord.
And this is the sweetest part. Then Krishna affectionately stroked his mother's silky, soft hair, but still determined not to be outdone, even after having been exposed as a thief. He kissed Yashoda's cheek and whispered in her ear, yes, I did. But I tell you, it's like...
Mother Yashoda probably has beautiful hair. You're a very good dramatic reader, Kaustubha.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And so, but you have to try to understand it. And really, you only understand this when people that really understand it explain it to you, you know? And then you can start to catch on that what's Krishna doing? What, you know, oh, it's kitschy, right? Oh, you have this god and he's a cute blue boy and he's got like a handful of butter and he's breaking open a pot and he's feeding to the monkeys. And it's all kitschy, right? But that obviously is like just some story because God, that's not God. Give me a break.
Like the origin of everything.
Yeah,
right.
Right. Okay. You know what? It's charming what you got there. You like, it may be like that too, right? Like, oh yeah, that's kind of charming. Like their religion's, you know, I don't believe it obviously, but it's kind of charming, you know? But
the real answer is why not?
Yeah. You know, you take people like, and this is another takeaway for Tay, like there's 6 figures in the lineage that we practice Bhakti-yogi, and they're called the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan.
No, I thought you were talking about 6 figures. Yeah. You got to make 6 figures. You want to practice this religion? 6 figures. I'm not rich enough to make that.
So these were all direct disciples of Sri Chaitanya. And I'm not going to go into, you know, all of that. But in other words, they were the very important, prominent figures in the history of the movement of Bhakti Yoga that lived 500 years ago, roughly. And they wrote important texts in terms of how to practice and understand bhakti. Now, some of those texts are deeply philosophical, like dense philosophy, right? As dense as any, you know, Greek or, you know, philosophy that you're going to find, or anything, like important texts that are like, you know, difficult to penetrate.
Right.
And the 6 Goswamis themselves were like these really important political figures, at least like some of them were, like Rupa and Sanatan Goswami, they were brothers. They were basically running Bengal, right?
Yeah, political figures, but sort of like under the under the thumb of the, you know, the colonists, the Mughals who've taken over the country at this time. So in one sense, they're second class citizens.
They
because
were
they were
right. They were Hindus that were living under Muslim rule, and a cruel Muslim rule.
a very cruel Muslim rule.
Yeah.
Like,
So it was kind of like, if you don't serve the government, you've got skills, and if you don't use them to serve my government, I'm really gonna harass, the Hindus. So they were kind of what do you call that? Coerced into that service.
yeah, it's like that you come into a country, you're a small, lesser amount than the entire population. So what do? You got to start putting some of the people of that population under your workforce.
Yeah.
So you find people who are very, very talented and skilled, and you let them a little closer to you, but basically they're still working for you.
Right.
So yeah, Rupa and Sanatan, right? They were working in
Sanatan.
very, very high positions.
Yeah. It's almost like, like in our modern day governments, you have the head of the Fed and things like that, right? And people that are running the economy and so on. So Rupa and Sanatan were like that, bureaucrats on the highest level, the people that really run the government, but within their hearts, they were great devotees all along, and hearing about, and then eventually meeting Sri Chaitanya, they just couldn't take it anymore. They just wanted to escape, and they wanted to run to Vrndavan and just totally absorb themselves in bhakti. And they each eventually found a way to finagle that.
They finagled their way out. They got to that point. They got to that point where we got to, on a regular basis, like, what am I doing with my life?
Right.
That mantra we say on regular occasions. What the hell?
It was on a much deeper level for them.
Much deeper than that. Yeah.
Yeah. But so then Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, he wrote incredible books. Srimad-Bhagavatam Rita, which reveals so much about how bhakti is the pinnacle of all yogic achievements, and he also wrote the Hari Bhakti Vilas, which is so much about like the practicalities of the bhakti lifestyle and practices. Rupa Goswami, he's sometimes called a Rasa Acharya. He's written incredible plays, dramas, as well as books explaining rasa. And rasa means, the word rasa, it's a word that's used in Sanskrit drama. And it means literally the word means like juice or taste, flavor. But it's in this context, it means that there's a subtle, beautiful, sweet, flavors of love, of emotion. And you can analyze human emotion and break it into different rasas, and then break it into different sub-rasas. And a playwright, a dramatist needs to understand these, because these are the colors that they're painting on their canvas, is like human emotion. So with a deep understanding of the nuances of human emotion, drawing, from the tradition of Sanskrit drama, Rupa Goswami composed dramas himself, but also wrote books that helped you understand the nuances of Krishna's Leela as if they were dramas, right? Just as someone that really understands drama may break it down for you, he's breaking down Krishna's pastimes for us and helping us understand the nature of love that's being shared there. And these six Goswamis were writing these in-depth books about. So again, we may look at it as kitschy. These are like these brilliant figures, brilliant politically, brilliant in terms of philosophically, brilliant artistically, just towering figures. And they were taking these stories very seriously,
Yeah.
and revealing.
It's
how
one thing
special
if
they
you're
are.
taking you have these very, very sophisticated, realized. It's beyond sophistication. They're like renounced. They're very like outstanding character. They're like respected. They're wealthy, and then all of a sudden they've given up all their wealth. They give up their position. They're renounced, and they're deeply philosophical. But then they accept like God is like a little child.
So it's their works that really, within this tradition, help people really understand how these aren't just kitschy stories. This is a very sublime philosophy. Now here's an excerpt. You want to read the excerpt from text 327?
Yeah.
Commentary there.
Yeah.
So this is talking about those characters, these great yogis who have entered into Krishna's pastimes.
Right. These cowherd boys were great ṛṣis and yogīs. See, they all have a backstory.
Mm-hmm.
They're not just normal little kids. They were great ṛṣis and yogīs in their previous births. After many such pious birth, they gained the association of the Lord and could play with him on equal terms.
On equal terms. It's not like you're God and I'm this small little figure, but in Vrndavan, to facilitate the intimacy of love, they're playing with him as if he's their friend.
Why not? Why not? I say that a lot. Why not? Yeah, why not?
Why not?
Right? What is it? Surviving death, Mara? What's that called?
Yeah, you got it.
Surviving death. Like, why not? Why can't there be ghosts in this room? Why not? You haven't seen it yet, Kaustubha. I really want to talk to you about that on the show. You're not going to watch that, are you?
Okay, I'll try to watch it.
Give it a chance. I just watched episode 5.
I've heard 6 is a really great episode.
6 is the episode. 6 will freak you out.
Okay.
But 5 is like, called I See Dead People, which is all about this woman who completely, it's all, truthfully, it's just about just dealing with dark spirits, but she makes it sound spiritual. Spirits are not necessarily spiritual. They could be like evil spirits. So yeah, that's the ghost episode number 5. Okay. On Netflix. These cowherd boys were great ṛṣis and yogīs in their previous births. And after many such pious births, they gained the association of the Lord and could play with him on equal terms. Such cowherd boys never cared to know who Krishna was, but they played with him as a most intimate and lovable friend.
Yeah, so we read in those verses how Krishna was like a covered flame, right? In Vrindavan, he was like, it mentioned, there are 2 analogies used. One was like he was like a lion cub.
At that.
Right? It's like adorable,
massive potential.
Yeah, well, or adorable, but also potentially dangerous. Like,
Yeah.
but it also said he was like a covered flame. So some of the commentators have explained that what that means is his divinity was covered. Like nobody knew that he was God in Vrndavan. They just thought he was this incredibly beautiful, talented, charming person.
Why can't I take my eyes off him?
Yeah, but they didn't think he was God. So in that sense, he was like a covered flame. And so when it says here, such cowherd boys never cared to know who Krishna was. It meant they didn't need him to be God. They just loved him.
Okay.
Beautiful.
They were so fond of the Lord that at night they would only think of the next morning when they would be able to meet the Lord and go together to the forest cowherding.
Yeah. So again, this is just like the emotions that we hear about in this world. Like someone will write a love song, right? About like how I'm not with you. I'm just thinking about you all the time.
Sure.
Right? And so that's what they were doing.
The forests on the shore of the Yamuna are all beautiful gardens full of trees of mango, jackfruit, apples, guava, oranges, grapes, berries, palm fruit.
Mm-hmm.
I actually had some interesting palm fruits. Dates are palm fruits.
Yeah, I was going to say dates are palm fruits, right?
But there's other palm fruits too.
Yeah.
And so many other plants and fragrant flowers. And because of the forest was on the bank of the Yamuna, naturally there were ducks, cranes, peacocks on the branches of the trees. All these trees and birds and beasts were pious living entities born in the transcendental abode of Vrndavan. It's not a random bird. It's not a random jasmine flower. It's not even a random palm tree. These are all special souls who got to take birth with Krishna.
You know what, Raghunath, when you read this, I thought of something. I had kind of a Krishna miracle.
Krishna miracles haven't happened a lot lately.
Okay. But you know what happened the other day? When we were on Saturday. Right?
Hold the phone, everybody. Kaustubha is going to talk about a Krishna miracle, which means it must include levitation, because you are the biggest skeptic of Krishna miracles. You don't take them cheaply like I do.
Cheaply. That's right.
Because I'm like, the sun is rising. It's a Krishna miracle.
But I think this has to do with there's probably a psychological, scientific explanation to this one.
Okay.
But Saturday, you and I were on the show, right? Questions and answers. Now, every day at the table, I'm sitting at a coffee table right now, and every evening, just to my left, we have our temple, Radha Krishna Radha Damodar temple, and
Which means an altar.
right,
If you're
an altar, yeah.
an altar.
And flowers are offered every day. And in the evening, when the altar is closed, my wife takes the flowers and puts them on this table. And so when I'm giving the talk here in the morning, I have these flowers here. You see,
It's getting more and more miraculous. Keep going.
every flower is a miracle. So every day I have these flowers here. Sometimes I pick them up. I'm holding my hand when I'm talking, or I even sneak in a little smell. People may or may not notice. But I just kind of, they're there every day. And but Saturday, I did something that I never do. And when my wife came after the show, she saw that I had plucked all the flowers, right? I plucked all the petals off them, right? And there's just like a pile of flower petals. And then she said, "You know what?" She said, "What went on here?" I said, "Oh, I guess I kind of plucked them." And she said, "Today is actually, because Saturday was actually the day of the flower festival in Mumbai, which we're there for every year except this year, right? Like
Everybody's nodding on Zoom who's been with us.
It's been like 10 years in a row that we've been at that flower festival, which consists of like hundreds and hundreds of people picking literally tons of
2 tons,
flower
I think,
petals,
of flowers.
right? So on that day every year, I sit for hours and pluck petals, to be thrown and showered
thrown
on.
at each other and at God.
Yeah. So there's a big festival where the altar, the deities of Radha and Krishna on the altar are showered in all varieties of fragrant flower petals, and then it's something that you just can't imagine. Like basically a snowball fight of flower petals takes place for hours with kirtan going on. It's an incredibly mind-blowing, fun festival.
Yeah.
So it seems like there's a clock in me, right? That on that day every year I'm meant to be plucking flower petals, because I've never done that the whole time. But that day is, not even realizing that it was that day, I plucked the flowers.
Oh, I get it. That's the miracle. It was sort of like an internal clock.
Yeah.
Where you started just plucking things.
We all need like an internal devotional bhakti clock, right?
Yeah. Well, you've got one. You're in tune with your.
That's because that
inner clock.
Because that festival is so powerful, it goes deep, right?
Yeah.
It really goes deep.
Mara, would you call that a Krishna miracle? What do you think?
Yeah, I think it qualifies.
Okay.
I think it's like a Krishna habit. How about a Krishna habit?
It's fine with me.
Let's start a new one. Krishna habits.
I think there's a scientific explanation, like a psychological time clock in me, right?
Like sometimes I'll wake up and it's like, Hare Krishna. You know what I mean? That's like a Krishna habit. I don't know if it's a Krishna miracle, but I think I'm impressed with it.
Okay.
I'm
I just want to share it. And that's all.
It's
It doesn't have to be a miracle for me to. I don't. I'm
It's a
fine.
beautiful Krishna habit.
Okay. All right. You want to finish this?
If you were to say I woke up and they were already plucked, and your wife didn't do it, that's a Krishna miracle.
Okay.
Like, have you ever prayed to the deity and you're praying there and you're praying, you're crying, and all of a sudden a flower that's on Krishna's flute drops and you're like, what the hell? Krishna's speaking to me.
What the hell?
Ever do that? Or the crown falls off and you're like, what?
That's a very ominous message when that happens.
No, I feel like come on. Haven't had a Christian, a flower just drops while you're praying.
But the question is, how do you interpret it? It's like, he's telling me I should do exactly what I wanted to do. Or he's saying, do not do what you are thinking of doing.
Krishna's head just goes back and forth. No. But maybe that's an Indian yes. Maybe that's an Indian head bobble saying, please do it, Raghunath. Good idea. I wonder if Krishna does head bobbling in real life.
He's the origin of everything. It's like that head bobbing, head right?
All right, let's continue on with this beautiful
purport.
excerpt. Yeah. All right.
Playing
all
like
these
a small
trees
child.
All these trees and birds.
Yeah.
I'll just read back.
And
all these
beasts.
trees and birds and beasts were pious living beings in their transcendental abode of Vrndavan. They were born there just to give pleasure to the Lord and his eternal associates, the cowherd boys. While playing like a small child with his associates, the Lord killed many demons, including Aghasura, Bakasura, Pralambasura, and Gardabasura.
Gardabasura.
Who's
That must be
that?
another name for, I don't know.
Somebody. Damn cart demon.
There's a cart demon again.
I love the cart demon. I want a cart demon t-shirt.
Okay.
Although he appeared at Vrndavan just as a boy, he was actually like the covered flames of a fire. There's the analogy.
Yep, there you
As a small boy, as a small particle of fire can kindle a great fire with fuel. So the Lord killed all these demons, beginning from his babyhood in the house of Nanda Maharaj. The land of Vrndavan, the Lord's childhood playground, still remains today. And anyone who visits these places enjoys the same transcendental bliss, although the Lord is not physically visible to our imperfect senses. What a great way to put it.
Mhm.
The Lord's there. It's just not there for your imperfect eyes to see.
Yeah,
So that's
you
it.
need some of that ointment.
Yeah, you need the ointment of love. So you could be born as a jasmine flower or palm tree. That's the Shantaras.
Mhm.
And then you experience the bliss of just being around Krishna. Is that the idea?
Appreciating Krishna.
You want to talk about Shantaras a little, Kaustubha? Because I don't know what's going on with Shantaras.
Well, we could talk about
Oh,
tomorrow.
it's 6:02. It's late.
Yeah.
It's late.
Crank
I
up the
gotta
music.
Queue up.
You teaching a class
I
today? or
usually
what?
queue up. I usually queue up and like fake it while you're talking, and I look down and oh yes, I nod. We got to stop there.
Anything going on?
Thanks
there?
everybody for joining us.
Yeah, Bobby's teaching an asana class at 6:15 a.m. this morning, sun
Oh, hey.
salutations and chill. And then there's a men's Bhakti recovery group at 11 a.m.
And let's start pumping up the Madhu thing for next Sunday, right?
Yeah, he's doing a Q&A on Sunday at 6 p.m.
Madhu.
Madhu is.
Yeah.
Well, all right. What a week. What a great week. Wake up, plow some snow, do some yoga with Bobby G. Thanks to everybody for joining us. It is going to be a very, very Krishna conscious day today. I can feel it.
All right.
I can feel Krishna miracles, Krishna habits. We got a happy birthday Kaustubha sign from Lyra Juno.
Oh, thank you, everybody. Oh, look at
It's
that.
very
Sweet.
kind.
I got so many sweet messages. I just want to say to everyone, it really touched me, whether it came through different channels, but thank you, everyone. I got a beautiful card that was like heart-shaped mailed to me, but I can't figure out who sent it. I couldn't read it. Whoever that was who sent me the heart-shaped card, please let me know.
Heart-shaped
that
card
was
in the
David
mail.
Charles Wilson, that was you? Yeah?
Aw.
Okay, thank you so much. That was great. It was
Sweet
beautiful.
man. Join us here on Zoom. If you're listening to an Apple podcast, join us on Zoom. Email Mara at wisdomofthesages108@gmail.com. Write your questions in for Q&A day. This whole thing is a question, isn't it? All life is a question. The whole Bhagavatam is questions and answers.
Thanks, Ariana.
It's a daily question podcast. Krishna Bolo Jai Radhe.